Hi, and welcome to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money, and investing. I'm your host, Ray Treverson from OTG Capital. I'm really pleased to welcome back to the microphone Natasha Panagis from the Institute of Financial Professionals Australia. We broadcast locally on Radio Northern Beaches and around Australia on the Community Radio Network. This week, Natasha, we've been talking super, and given that you are the superannuation expert at IFPA, I don't know if we'd really talk about too much else, would we?
Oh, look, there's lots to talk about.
There always is. I guess from that perspective, the last time you were on the show, we were talking about the key fundamental differences between self-managed super funds and APRA-based and government-type super funds. And I think we were focusing a lot on SMSFs. But I think one of the other factors that when people are setting up their own self-managed super funds, and I guess one of the elements we were talking just before we came on air today, is that there's a lot of focus on accumulation. And so today, what I wanted to talk to you about are what are the kind of strategies people can employ and start thinking about in their, I guess, late 40s, 50s, or even in their early 60s as they're coming up to retirement to get their super up to that magical number. And that number's what, about it's 1.9 million at the moment?
At the moment, right? Yep. You can have that much in pension.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, if you can get your super to 1.9 million, or if you're a couple, 3.8 million, you know, the idea of being able to live off the assets and the revenue that can generate. I mean, as a fund manager, I look at that and go, I can make very good money of 3.8 million bucks, and it's tax free, guys. You know, this is where I guess when we're talking about investment strategies, Natasha, we're still talking about, in reality, probably the best investment strategy for retirement, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, super, it's your money, right? So it pays to take an active interest in your super during your working years. And by making regular contributions over the course of your working life and ensuring your money is invested properly is going to lead to greater savings that can help fund the lifestyle that you want in retirement. There's so many benefits of starting and topping. Like, it's never too late. Whether you're still working or retired, you can continue to make super contributions to benefit you in retirement and beyond. So we can chat about that today, Ray, and just talk about the benefits of topping up super and you know, the ways you can go about it.
So I guess financial planners, normally when they're talking to clients and they're first starting to get to know them, and even as you and I as industry professionals talks to people, I guess we tend to compartmentalize people at phases of life. So, I mean, I've got 3 children that are all between 20 and 30. And so they're working, they're accumulating a little bit of super because they're not earning as much as, say, somebody, you know, a little bit older than them. So their mind around super, you know, they don't care about it. You know, they get their yearly statement. You know, I'm lucky to grab it out of the bin and make sure I file it, because otherwise they wouldn't read it. And as they, you know, they if they're lucky enough to be able to get into real estate, their heads are in very different spaces than, say, mine is or yours is. You're a bit younger than me, but you've got a young family. So your phase of life, you know, you are thinking about your super very differently to other people at different phases of their lives. So I guess as a generic question, when should people be thinking about topping up their super?
Yeah, look, as I said, it's never too late, whether you're still working or retired. You can do it either way. It's specifically designed, super specifically designed to help you save for retirement. And it's one of the key reasons why you should take an interest in your super. So the 2 key reasons why you should do it, and do it as early as possible, if you can, obviously. Number 1 is the concessional tax environment within super. Super provides tax concessions on the contributions and the earnings within the fund. So generally speaking, any contributions that your employer makes and any investment earnings on your super balance will be taxed at a maximum of 15%. In most cases, this is going to be lower than your marginal tax rate, and means that what that means is that you can, more of your money goes towards your retirement than on your than if you were invested outside of super. The second key reason why you should be looking to top up your super is that is the benefit of compounding interest. That can help boost your savings. So
Yeah.
making those small financial sacrifices, even if it's, I don't know, making an example here, $20 or $50 from your paycheck every fortnight, month, whatever it might be, those small financial sacrifices and contributing those to super over the years is key to long-term wealth. And that long-term growth is due to that power of compounding interest. And super uses compounding interest to grow your balance, which will help you in retirement. And, if you're an employee, your employer is going to pay 11.5% of your salary or wages into your super this financial year. That'll go up to 12% from next financial year. And that's all going to use compounding interest to grow until you reach retirement. And to boost the amount that you're going to have saved at retirement, you may want to consider making additional contributions through either salary sacrifice or making some personal after-tax contributions to super. But really, it's gives you that potential for investment growth combined with the power of compounding interest and returns. It's surprising how putting away such small and regular amounts can increase your overall balance substantially over time. So, some people, that one strategy that, is talked about is when you get a pay rise, if you were to, salary sacrifice a certain amount that you weren't, used to receiving, you didn't see it anyway, it's brand new money, then that could be one way to start looking at it. So yeah, look, there's a range of different ways to go about it, but they're two of the key reasons why you should look at super as early as possible.
So I want to focus just very quickly on the superannuation guarantee, because when super first started in the 90s, it was set at 3%. And again, for those that are not old enough to remember, but the reason we got 3% at that time was that the union movement negotiated with the then Labor government, with Paul Keating and Bob Hawke, to forego a 3% national wage rise and put that into super for their retirement savings. And then they've progressively built that up to almost 12%, which will occur in 2025. Just as an indicator too, ladies and gents, across the ditch in New Zealand, KiwiSaver only goes up to a maximum of 3%. And even many times there, they don't even have to do 3%. Sometimes it's only 2 or 1%. And many Kiwis do not retire with the kind of nest egg that we do now. And so the other thing that's occurring, I think it's going to be July 1 of next year, we're going to have now the idea around superannuation guarantee, you think is nice and it all gets done, but a lot of people don't pay it, and you've got to chase that down. That's what I keep on saying to my kids. Make sure that superannuation money goes into your super fund, because there's a few employers out there that aren't doing the right thing. But from 1st of July, they're going to payday super, aren't they?
Yeah, so that'll kick off 1 July 2026.
26, so it's another year.
Another year, and they need that another year because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to make this happen.
Right.
You've got the super funds that are going to need to, update behind the scenes systems, payroll providers, employers. So yeah, it's quite a large job to get to payday super. But yeah, look, 1 July 2026 is the date where all employers, regardless of size, will be required to pay super at the same time that they pay salary or wages.
So what's the difference between that and what's happening at the moment?
At the moment, legally, employers just have to pay super on a quarterly basis by law. Lots of employers pay at the moment, currently pay at the same time that they pay their salary or wages to their employees. So a lot of them are currently doing payday super, but legally they don't have to. They can do that quarterly. Generally, you'll find those employers that are paying quarterly are your smaller businesses, your micro, your small business operators will generally pay quarterly because they just, it is a bit of a compliance requirement or a bit of a burden for them to have to pay it every quarter if they don't have the right software or payroll systems to allow them to do that. So yeah, generally the smaller employers will stick to the quarterly, and the larger ones, or medium to larger size, pay at the payday.
I think it's also worthy to note, and again, I add a note of surprise that it was actually a coalition government that brought this rule in, but the rule about the $400 monthly limit is now gone. So no matter how much you earn, you get super guarantee on all of your pay, regardless of whether it's $500 or $5,000 a month. It all gets super guarantee, because before it used to be 400 and below didn't have to have super paid. And this, unfortunately, really castigated and punished the young and mainly women that weren't earning enough. Have you seen a lot of positive change around that within the association, Natasha?
Yeah, certainly that change, removing that monthly threshold, has benefited, as you say, younger people and women, people who are mainly in part-time or casual jobs, or might have multiple jobs, that are low income earners. So that has certainly helped them. And if you think about what the super sector is worth now, it's worth $3.9 trillion as at June of this year, June 2024. So
wow,
contributions and just member benefits have just increased and continues to grow, right? Which is testament to the super guarantee regime.
And given the last time you were on the show, we were talking about self-managed super funds. The number of SMSFs has grown quite strongly in the last sort of 2 to 5 years as well. Do you have a grasp on roughly how many we've got self-managed funds in Australia now?
Yeah, look, the last I saw it was about 630 odd thousand SMSFs. So yeah, and that they continue to grow. I mean, the ATO puts out quarterly statistics often, and they also tell you every time they release these statistics the growth in the numbers, how many new SMSFs are registered, how many funds are there, how many trustees and member balances, the demographics, the investment statistics. So it's really quite interesting just to see what SMSFs are doing and how they're growing.
And I think one of the interesting statistics that I saw in that as well is the growth in SMSF trustees in the 35 to 45 age group. So younger audiences are now really taking note, and I think really grabbing a hold of their financial future by, I think, taking a more active role in the management of their retirement nest egg. And I guess, we were talking about my own daughter and her hallelujah moment now that she's working for a research organization and she's realized, oh my God, this superannuation thing's actually pretty cool. And the tipping point now, we've reached that tipping point where more than half of Australians can now retire without having to be on the age pension. So it's a really good point. So look, we're going to come back in just a moment and talk a little bit about preservation age. We're just about time for a short break. You're here on Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money and investing. I'm here with Natasha Panagis from the Institute of Financial Professionals Australia. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back in just a moment. Hi, and thank you for listening to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly radio program about finance, money and investing on Radio Northern Beaches and nationally on the Community Radio Network around Australia. The views, comments and opinions aired during our program should not be construed or viewed as financial advice. Any commentary is general advice only and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation or needs. You should consider whether the advice is suitable for you and your personal circumstances. If in doubt, you should contact an authorised licensed financial planner. We welcome questions and feedback, and you can get in touch with us via our blog, social media channels or email. Please search for Dollars and Making Sense in your favourite podcast platform or check out our blog at otgcapital.com.au/blog. Hi, and welcome back to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money and investing. I'm your host, Ray Treverson, and with me at the microphone this week, I have Natasha Panagis from the Institute of Financial Professionals Australia, and we are talking about topping up your super and preservation age. Now, before we went to the break, we were talking about superannuation guarantee, and we're at 11.5% going to 12%, and payday super that's going to be implemented in the next sort of 18, 24 months. Now, there are other ways of being able to top up your super. You talked about concessional contributions and personal contributions. There's a few others. What might they be, Natasha?
Yeah, look, the other ways that you can contribute is salary sacrifice contributions. You could make a personal contribution from your after-tax money into super and claim a tax deduction on that. You can also have contributions made to you from your spouse. So it's a spouse contribution. You can make downsizer contributions, so which is using money from the sale proceeds of your home, put that into super. So yeah, there's a range of different types of contributions you can make to your fund, particularly if you're under the age of 75. The rules slightly change once you reach age 75.
Sure. I want to talk about the work test rule in a bit. And one of the other interesting things that you mentioned very briefly, downsizer, we're actually going to do a new show with one of your new members on your staff, Stuart. And downsizer is one of those other subjects that I think deserves its show in its own right, which we will do. But one of the things that I think has really opened up quite a lot, and I also found out from Services Australia, who was on the show just recently, that the work test rules around pension eligibility and the work test is changing quite dramatically, which allows people to earn more if you are on a pension. But also, what are the work test rules now for those under 75 contributing to super? Because that's changed a bit as well, hasn't it?
So this is a work test for super. So from the 1st of July 2022, the work test rule has been relaxed. Now, the work test outlines the requirements that you must meet if you want to make a voluntary personal tax deductible contribution to your super fund if you are between the ages of 67 and under 75 years of age. Now, to satisfy this work test, you must be gainfully employed for at least 40 hours during a consecutive 30-day period each financial year. Now, that's the current rule. Previously, prior to 1 July 2022, the work test applied to most contributions made by individuals aged between 67 and 75. But now the work test only needs to be met for personal tax deductible contributions. So, the good news is you don't need to meet the work test for other types of contributions. So being retired won't stop you from contributing to super.
Okay, that's really, really good. So for those of you that, and again, it's also key to note, a lot of people don't seem to, it doesn't, despite all the news, a lot of people still think they're retiring at 65. They're not. The retirement age is now 67, and that's been phased in over a number of years. But another thing that was phased in over the years was preservation age. Can you explain to the audience what preservation age means and why has it changed from 55 now to 60?
Yeah, so access to your super is generally restricted to people who have reached preservation age. So that is the minimum age at which super benefits can be accessed. Now, as of 1 July 2024, so this year, the preservation age has increased to age 60, meaning that members who are aged 60 or older can meet the retirement condition of release if they have ceased a gainful employment after turning age 60, or they've ceased a gainful employment and the trustee is reasonably satisfied that they don't intend to return to gainful employment either in a full-time or a part-time capacity. So really, if the retirement condition of release is met, that is, that you cease an employment arrangement after the age of 60, then you can access your super. Now, preservation age has been slowly increasing over the years, and it's finally reached its legislative maximum age of 60 on the 1st of July 2024. So that means anyone born on or after 1 July 1964 will have a preservation age of age 60.
Right.
Beforehand, prior to 1 July this year, preservation age ranged anywhere between 55 and 60, depending on your date of birth. But now it's simple. It is 60 years of age for everybody. But just a quick tip, Brian, you touched on this regarding age pension age. It's important to note that preservation age is not the same as age pension age. To get the age pension, you've got to be age 67 or over. And preservation age is 60s to be able to get access from your super. So two different ages for access to two different things.
But I guess it's important for people to understand that if they've reached the age of 60 now, they've still got 7 years to wait before they're eligible for the age pension. That's just the way it is. But there is an ability for you to be able to tap into your super legally and be able to draw, I guess, what would be referred to as a TRIS, a transition to an income stream that is able to tide you over. But obviously, I'd be saying to anybody, tread carefully because that's your nest egg that you're dealing with. So, you want to be careful in that regard. And we often talk about accumulation phase. But one of the things I think, I think a big theme I'm going to have in next year's shows, Natasha, is what do we do in pension phase? Because we talk so much about accumulation, and even this subject today is about topping up and getting ready. But I don't think a lot gets really talked about. Okay, we've now got our gold watch, metaphorical. We've got our gold watch and we're looking forward into the sunset and saying, okay, I've got my nest egg and I'm ready to go into retirement, and hopefully your health is okay. What do I do? And I think, and I've had a number of people on the show that talk not just about finance, because, there's a whole facet of things that you need to deal with. But if we talk just purely money, there's some really big things that's got to be considered, because between when you retire and 75, there's still other things that you can be doing to top up your super. Can you maybe remind the audience what some of those things might be?
Yeah, definitely. Between those ages, you can continue to top up, your fund with a range of different contributions. So, you'll obviously, if you're still working, you'll get your super guarantee contributions from your employer. You can potentially enter into an arrangement with your employer to salary sacrifice some of your income. You can make some after-tax contributions if you've got spare cash lying around into your fund. Or you can do that again, put spare cash into your fund and claim a tax deduction for it if you want to reduce the amount of tax you want to pay at the end of the year. If you're selling your home, you can pop those proceeds into your fund. Spouse contributions, you can get a tax offset for that, depending on the circumstances. So there's a whole range of different contribution strategies that you can make if you're under the age of 75. Unfortunately, once you're age 75 or over, the only contributions that you can make or receive in your fund are employer super guarantee contributions, so they can continue to be received.
You can continue to work after 75 and still get SG put into your super fund.
Correct. Yeah. So that's that's changed over the years. So you can continue to get super guarantee into your fund even if you're over age 75.
That's how Rupert Murdoch's done it, because he's worked till he was 92. So from 75 to 92, he was still getting the super guarantee.
Yeah, look, there's lots of older Australians that are continuing to work. It just gives them a sense of purpose. They enjoy it. Because once you retire, some people just don't know what to do with themselves. And you often see people get back into the workforce because they've tried retirement and they enjoyed it for the first couple of months, but then they got bored. So there's lots of people. So retirement isn't a set and forget, a fixed thing. It can change. So yeah, I'm talking about being able to access your super once you retire, but your intention might change, a year down the track or maybe 6 months down the track. So yeah, Ray, I think this is a session in itself, another session to talk about retirement and what happens if you decide to go back. And what does that mean for your super, and can you continue to contribute? And there's a range of different things. So yeah, retirement is no longer a fixed date. You can go back and, your super can still be, you can still contribute, and there's a whole range of things to think about. But yeah, certainly you can continue to top it up. And the laws over the recent years have been become more flexible, allowing older Australians to contribute, particularly those in their 60s and 70s as well.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. We have a new person with us in OTG Capital, an old Defence Force buddy of mine who was sitting around. He sort of semi-retired, and he just recently turned 70. And so he said, well, look, if I did a bit of training, can I come on board? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? And the fascinating thing, I guess, is that I see people, 60 and beyond as a real asset to workforce, because their life experience is something that you can't replicate in somebody in their 20s. It's funny because I had that conversation because I at my local surf club, I'm actually hiring people there for social media because we don't have a clue. So I think there's a really valuable role, I guess, for different age groups and to be doing different things. But look, I think one of the things, I guess, as a final word, and I'm going to actually read from your notes here. Changes to the contribution rules now allow more flexibility for people in their 70s and 60s to add to their super. So whether you're still working or retired, you can continue to make these superannuation contributions. But I think for anybody younger as well, I think it's really important to remember the phases of life. And look, sure, when you're in your 20s and 30s, super is not that important because you're living your life, and that's something that is kind of set and forget. But there are still very valuable things that super can be doing in the background for the younger people, and that includes life insurance, includes TPD, so temporary permanent disability cover, and it also includes compounding, that wonderful, wonderful thing called compound interest. And again, I think it's just an incredibly valuable lesson. Look, Natasha, some of the other external articles that you've referenced to me, I'm going to actually put in the blog. I guess one of the things, there are some resources on the IFPA website that people can be looking at. Money Smart would be another one, I guess, that people can look at as well, yes?
Yeah, the Money Smart website's great. And also the ATO has great collateral for individuals as well if they're looking for information. So, a lot of this stuff that we've talked about today would be available either or both on the ATO and the Money Smart website. So, yeah, it's certainly gotten better at providing more financial education content anyway for people who need this information.
And I guess I'll make a shameless plug for the government here, because if you're not sure, ladies and gentlemen, around preservation ages, around retirement ages, I mean, Justin Bott from Services Australia comes on the show regularly from Centrelink. And I think, his big thing is to try and educate. And I think IFPA, with what we do, Natasha, is I think certainly in the SMSF and super area, it is a bit more complex. But man, the benefits, the upside, and what was it? 3.9 trillion, wasn't it?
That's what the super sector is now worth.
Wow.
And it's as I said, it's due to the super guarantee regime. It's due to voluntary contributions. It's also due to the tax concessions, and that attracts people to want to invest their money in super. And one thing we didn't touch on is, once reaching preservation age, which is now 60, you can receive all your super benefits tax free, whether it's a lump sum or pension payments. That's all tax free for you if you're 60 or over. So there's so many benefits of contributing to super, using that as a nest egg to support you in retirement and beyond.
Wonderful. Okay, we're just about out of time. Natasha Panagis from IFPA, it's always a pleasure to talk to you about super and all those wonderful topics that we keep ranting about and telling people how fabulous it is, because it is. Look, until next time, Natasha, always a pleasure to have you on the show on Dollars and Making Sense. And until next time, it's adios.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, everyone.